Back to the origins after Easter weekend here on the Calcio Guys. Adriano, Gianni, I'm Nicholas. Hope you guys got some good Easter chocolate this weekend. How you guys doing?
Not bad, not bad. Not enough Easter chocolate, unfortunately, but still got a nice amount.
Good, man. I don't know. I think I'm still. I'm a bit tired of eating the same Easter leftovers, but besides that, I think we're all good. Had a bunch of Kinder eggs and mini eggs, so I'm all hyped up for tonight.
Yeah, I got a ton of chocolate, so I've been like just on a sugar rush the past few days, but can't complain. Only time of the year we get this much chocolate, so you know. But Calcio, there was still Calcio this weekend as usual. Serie A, they didn't play on Sunday. They played a bunch of games on Saturday, and then I didn't even know this. They even played games on Monday. So I was a bit surprised to see I was getting I was seeing posts on Instagram with from games on Monday. I thought they just did everything on Saturday, but that wasn't the case. Um, uh, we might as well just start right off the bat. I mean, Saturday game, Lazio Juve, uh, not not a not a good effort, right, for my Juve. Seems like that's been the case for the past few months. I don't want to beat a dead horse here. It's been the same old. I think it was 7 winless games in Serie A, if I'm not mistaken. I forget the exact number, but what was interesting about this game is Lazio and Juve. They knew at that point they were just going to play a couple days later, which they did in Coppa Italia, and it's always interesting because you obviously want to focus on that one game, but you always have your mind thinking about the next game in a couple of days against the same team. In terms of strategy and all that. I think with Juve, the same problems occurred: lack of goal scoring. Getting scored on right at the end, Marusic, at a point when you had young guys on the field, and he was man marked by a player who I didn't even know who he was. I had to message all my Juve friends like, "Who is this guy?" I already forget who it is, and that's what happens when you play young players. Sometimes inexperience. We saw that I think even with Ealing against Napoli, it just happens. Obviously, I think it was one of those games probably would have been fair to get a point each, but that's the way she goes sometimes. And for Juve, that top four battle just keeps sliding down. And at this point, there is doubt. There is doubt whether they'll make the Champions League next year. Obviously, the fact that there could be a fifth Champions League spot helps them because Roma is 7 points behind them in that fifth spot. But it's tight. Like Bologna is right there, 57 points.
Yeah, 2
They're
points
they're
behind.
continuing. Yeah, they're continuing their strong season. And for Juve, it's almost for a while it was a Scudetto race, and then became like, okay, let's just fight for top, second place with Milan. Now it's a matter of um, it's a matter of staying alive in the top four. But we'll talk about Coppa Italia later. But I think the Coppa Italia win hopefully gave them some confidence. Another big game this weekend against another Coppa Italia team, Fiorentina. I think that's Sunday at 2:45, which I think this is almost a must-win game for Juve, especially a team that's in 10th place right now. It's a team that Juve is better than, and you still they need to start getting wins. Simple as that. Obviously, right now the goal is to win the Coppa Italia. They're 2 games away from that, but the secondary goal, or 1B if you want, is also to get that Champions League spot, because I think at the end of the day, Champions League, Coppa Italia, I think is an acceptable season. Probably, I think overall Juve at this point, they're going to look back on the season. They're going to call it disappointing. There's a chance they finish with less points than last year, but we'll wait and see. And just another frustrating game. Your guys' teams, Roma, on the other hand, Gianni 0-0 against Lecce. I don't know if you had a chance to watch that on Monday. And then Milan did pick up the win on Saturday, 2-1 against Fiorentina. I don't know if and I forgot Napoli. Napoli, another disappointing
It's
loss.
okay. I think everybody wants to forget that game. It's all good.
There you go. I already forgot.
3-0.
I don't know who wants to go first talking about their teams.
Johnny, I'll let you go first.
I'll start with Lecce Roma. Basically, this was a game that showed that if you don't have I think both games pretty much demonstrated that when you don't have a key player in the lineup, the results kind of show. in the Roma game, Pellegrini was suspended for the match. He had to deal with the red card. So you lose a player that under De Rossi has just seen a new life. He's become fantastic for them and a very, very vital player in that formation. And nothing could have like got going in that matchup. Like mind you, it sucks because like the lineup it wasn't the healthiest, wasn't the strongest possible lineup because they figured it might as well take a little bit of a rest day versus Lecce. But I think that was the worst call to make and probably just an inexperienced decision from De Rossi at that point. But I mean, look, at least you can walk away with a point, especially that you're in a race for the top four. You're still in punching distance. It's not like as if you're far off right now. Actually, let me have the standings open over here.
I think Nick said it was 7 points, right? Nick, was it 7
With
points?
Roma,
No,
yeah.
they're 5 points behind
behind Bologna,
oh,
7
Oh,
behind
Bologna.
Juve.
Oh,
yeah,
there you go.
so they're still in punching distance. It's still a little bit of a hill to climb, but it's not the worst. When it was comparable to they're in the like near 9th, 10th place this when De Rossi first took over the team. So it's okay, it happens. But like I said, you get at least you get the point out of it. Moving on to the Napoli Atalanta game, like Kvaratskhelia not being there, kind of. I wouldn't say it was I wouldn't say it's the reason why they lost. It doesn't help because your team let in 3 goals. It's not one of those games where it's like, oh, it could have been a difference maker by a goal or two that like by offense. This was like, no, this is an exposure that the Napoli backline is like I said, even though it won the Scudetto last year, it wasn't a strong backline. It just so happened that Kim played out of his mind. It really masked a lot of issues. Juan Jesus and Rahmani is probably the worst pairing I've ever seen in my life. I've never been a big fan of Rahmani since day one. I always I remember, and we can even look back in the previous episode, like maybe like 100-something episodes ago when Juan Jesus first came to Napoli, and I'm like, it's a lateral move, and I'll say it again, it's a lateral move. Nothing, it doesn't push the needle. It just fills a spot. It sucks because Rui's back in form. He started the season he wasn't the healthiest. He wasn't in his best of shapes. Di Lorenzo was a bit lost at times. There was times he was the best, and there was times he was the worst. Now there's rumors of him possibly going to Inter during the summer. I don't know. These are rumors. Rumors are always happening, right? And then it shows that Meret isn't the solid goalie that that he was last year. Like it's something that. Like last year, he played well, and it was a bit of a surprise. But it kind of also helps demonstrate why he kind of did like a split between him and Reina. Not Reina. Oh my god.
What's his face?
Oh my god. Why am I blanking out?
It's
a Spanish.
Ospina.
I don't like it's a Spanish goalie, Johnny. It's not Reina. And it's not Reina. Holy fuck. It's funny how like the first Spanish goalie I think for Napoli it's Reina, not Ospina.
Calcio Guys are still on an Easter buzz.
Yeah, it's probably because of the baldness. I guess that's why I just.
There you go.
Maybe Golini would have been probably the better call to do in this match, specifically the fact that it's against Atalanta, so he might have a bit of a chip on his shoulder. I'm making assumptions. I'm not saying it's fact. I'm making assumptions. So hopefully nobody just takes that and just like runs with it. But it's more than just like it's on the goalie. Like it was just a defensively atrocious game. It also showed the big coaching or experience between Gasperini and Calzone versus like Gasperini, been coaching in the league for a very long time with the same team. And, analyzing the matchup, he probably had like, you knew the better call how to break it down versus Calzona, where it's just like, he has been getting some nice results with the team, but I don't know. I think there was a sense that the team was going to come down to earth at some point. Because you can only get so much of a high from a coaching change. Eventually, your players are going to have to rally together and push to make that difference. And this game, unfortunately, did not happen. It was a frustrating one. And it's definitely one of those goldfish games, as Ted Lasso likes to say. Be a goldfish, like just forget it and move on. And now my cat's jumping onto my dresser to get on top of my clean clothes. So Would you?
No, I also think that just to bounce off to Johnny's point there, I think like there's only so much, like you said, there's only so much of a high that you can kind of ride with, and I think it's also about like how the players take that. Like both of Johnny's teams, Roma and Napoli have those coaching changes, and we've seen like kind of night and day results in terms of progress since that coaching change. So I think it's a mixture in terms of obviously the coaching change. You're going to have that fresh start. You're going to have that little bit of a buzz. It's kind of to the players to take to that and to have that connection and to kind of roll with it. And De Rossi seems to have done a good job so far. I think in his 10 games that he's been around, it's only one loss, and I think it was the one against Inter. So whereas Napoli's situation has just been a nightmare with every coaching change that they've made. So I think it's like a two-way street for that. And then like look at Nick opened the show with the Juve Lazio game, and Tudor comes in, and it's a quick sample size, but he gets that a little bit of spirit at the end to finish that game, because with Sarri, I don't think that's a win. I don't think that's even a point, maybe, so Tudor, hats off to that. It's very, very brand new, so we'll see. And obviously Coppa Italia game yesterday didn't do him any justice, but it's still the wheels are turning, I think, with these clubs. But if we're going to move over to Milan, my team, yeah, man, like, listen, I was anxious for this game to start, because it was just one of those, it was a game where Milan was facing Fiorentina, right after, obviously, the passing of Joe Barone. We said it on the show, the past couple of weeks and on these previous episodes. Obviously his passing has impacted a lot, and this was before the international break. We come back from international break. The first game is against Fiorentina, obviously high emotion. Beautiful, obviously, tribute, moment of silence, the balloons, that went up in the air. The jersey, the flowers at his spot, at the Termino Franchi. It was a beautiful moment, and you kind of get maybe caught up in those emotions. But I think if there was anybody to kind of like lead that path to, trying to get a victory, would have been a guy like Pioli, having dealt with something similar, obviously losing a player, Davide Astori, years ago now. So it was an emotional moment, but at the same time, I think there was culture to be played, and there had to be results that needed to take place. So I'm happy that Milan was able to weather that emotional storm and kind of go out and win. Obviously, culture is secondary in cases of this, but the game did go on, and I think it was an encouraging game on the Milan side. Two goals to one. Loftus-Cheek having an incredible season since joining Milan. Him alongside with a guy like Pulisic has been two guys that really reformed their careers maybe with this stint with Milan. So it's encouraging to see. And then obviously Leao, like we've always said, when he's on, he's on. And goal and an assist in his 200th appearance for Milan, I think was huge. And yeah, man, just being able to shut them down. Manuel making some crucial saves at crucial times. Even though the hate that he gets sometimes for letting in some suspect goals this season, I think when he's another one. When he's up to the task, he's pulling off those timely saves, and that's kind of what you need if you really want to make a push for top four. Obviously, Scudetto seems to be out of the picture with only 8 games left, and you're I think about 14 points behind. But trying to cement that second spot, even though it is the number 2 spot in the title race. You separate yourself from Juve with their result, so it's encouraging. And not only that, I think I saw somewhere earlier today, this Milan points, I think they're at 65, if I'm not mistaken, currently. They're a point off from, I think, their Scudetto winning season in terms of after 30 match days. the amount of points that they were able to grab. So obviously it's a different season, and obviously it's there's different competition, and the Scudetto race is more over than it is alive. But just to say that, people criticizing Pioli, criticizing the team, criticizing the squad, those are just. But at the same time, if we're gonna kind of like balance ourselves with other seasons that we've had in this Pioli era, it's right on par. So not saying that's a scapegoat for anything that's kind of gone wrong this season, but it just to put things into perspective of how this season is going, and hopefully where it could finish, come May. So encouraging, but at the same time, there's 8 more finals until the end of the season, right? So we look over to this weekend in Lecce, which gave a good Roma side some trouble. So there's no, like we always say on the show, there's no easy games in Serie A, and I think Milan needs to take care of business in these eight finals, as we like to call them, to end the season, and work towards getting some important results in the Europa League campaign, hopefully to make a run there as well.
I want to talk about other games in the Serie A, but before we move on, we're on the topic of our own teams, and looking ahead this month, it's a pretty big month for all of our teams. Obviously, look at Milan. Obviously, they play Roma in the Europa League, but then on April 22nd they play Inter. Then April 28th, the exact date of that weekend, the time of the game, it's Juve. So you got Roma, Milan. Roma, Inter, Juve.
Yeah.
You look at Roma, obviously they got Milan, but then they have the derby this weekend, Gianni against Lazio, and then moving ahead, they have a huge game against Bologna on April 22nd, which, if Roma wants to qualify for Champions League, that's a must-win game. And then they play Napoli on April 28th, and then the week after, I know we're getting into May here, they play Juve, and then they play Atalanta. Juve a bit quieter month, but they do play Lazio, still another game, Coppa Italia. They have the Torino derby, obviously not the same extent of the derbies in Milan or Rome, but it's still a derby nonetheless. And then obviously there's the games against Milan, April 28th and May 5th against Rome. And then Napoli, there's Derby della Giannina on April 28th. And then 2 weeks later against Bologna. But looking at these schedules, guys, I mean, obviously big month for all of our teams, but specifically between Milan and Rome, which month do you think is tougher?
I think it has to be Milan's, I would think.
I don't know, man. Like, okay, you go first. Present your evidence.
Yeah. And then we'll have a rebuttal.
So I mean, maybe if I'm going to kind of say, maybe not in the sense that, we're really chasing anything. I think obviously the whole chasing factor of getting into top 4 for Roma is obviously maybe is a bigger target and a bigger thing to do. I just think it's the sheer opponents that we're facing. I mean, you have a derby, and no knock to Lazio, but obviously Inter's a tougher matchup than it is Lazio this season. Again, both are derbies. Everything goes out the window. We all know it. But at the end of the day, Inter's been, unfortunately, the best team in the league this year, and Milan has to go face them on Monday Night Football, like we spoke about a couple weeks ago with Gianmarco from Interviews Pod. Obviously, the game against Juve is big. That 2-3 matchup is huge. Who knows? What the points are going to be come that match. But again, these are still 2 top teams in this league that are fighting for a bit of pride and, obviously a bit more of that compensation come the end of the year, that money, which all these Serie A teams need desperately, I think is going to go a long way. And then obviously the Europa League matchups against Roma. I mean, this is an Italian matchup, which is always a big thing in Europe. Roma is no pushover side under De Rossi, as we've seen, and I'm excited to see how that unfolds and what kind of Milan and what kind of Roma we're going to see in these matchups. I'm expecting for 2 heavy duty matchups. I'm hoping At least I think we're both hoping in this case with myself and Johnny. But yeah, I don't know. I just think if we really want to compare, which I hate to do, but in terms of strength of schedule, I think Milan's schedule is a bit tougher. But again, at the end of the day, I don't think it's whoever you want to say has the tougher schedule. I think there can't be any excuses, and these teams have to go out and play the games and come out with maximum points or trying to advance or what the case may be. So that's how I kind of see it. But I think they're both like pretty tough. I mean, there's no easy route in kind of weaving away these last 2 months of the season. Johnny, you may proceed.
So the reason why I'm arguing that Roma's got the tougher schedule, like you said before, you have the 2 matches against Milan coming up in Europa League. Those are very good. Those are very competitive matches. And then more often than not, the remaining matches are against a lot of teams that are in the top 10 or more specifically, like in the top 6, and it's teams that you're fighting against to get into those, Champions League spots. Bologna is one of those teams that you're going to have to beat.
Yeah,
you got to beat Napoli, who's like, even though I know Napoli's hasn't had the best season, it's still
a game you wake up for.
It's
for sure.
Exactly. It's still a game that you need to. It's a derby. You still need to take it seriously, and you still have to know that Napoli's got a lot of threats as well as Roma. The Lazio game. It's the first derby for De Rossi as a manager. It's something that has extra weight to him, and also Roma's playing with this pressure to get into top 4. I know Milan's playing against Inter, who's been the dominant Inter team, but Milan doesn't have that much pressure to retain that top 4. It would take a dramatic collapse from a Milan side for them to fall out of top 4. And I'm not saying this with evil eye intention. I'm saying it's like that's they're in a comfortable spot. Obviously you can't get too comfortable because then you slip up on points and next thing it sneaks away from you. Like Juve had enough of a cushion, or else that could have happened to them too. And even Juve them too, like they have to take it a bit seriously now, because that was the past few games have been a wake up call for them. So that's why especially like 3rd, 4th, and below is just a toss up sometimes. So whereas 65 points. We lost Adri. Oh, then he's back. 65 points is not, it's not the safest, but it's pretty safe. So I feel like the reason why Roma has the toughest because they have to fight in, whereas Milan just has to maintain. And mentality wise, it's different in the dressing room. It could be dangerous when you have to maintain because you can get complacent and you can make mistakes here or there versus, when you have to fight in, it could motivate your players. But as you can tell, De Rossi's not the perfect manager for the team, but he's not the worst either. Like he's getting the best as he can for his players and he's going to try for that top 4 spot. But the teams that you're going up against, you're going up against Atalanta, you're going up against Napoli, you're going up against Lazio, you're going up against Juve, these are teams that this is a tough part of the schedule. Like now he's playing against some serious contenders, and Bologna too. You can't sleep on them. You can't. It's not a team that you should underestimate. I probably said at the beginning of the season that them fighting for that top 4 spot is cute and might not last long. But here we are, day 30. We're going into match day 31, and they're still holding on to that 4th place spot. At what point do we say? I'm not trying to it could be that this is just a miraculous season for them. It could be. We also have to consider the fact that, maybe Motta finally found something that clicked, and this might be something. If he stays, this might be something to maybe consider going into next season. Now, we don't know if he's going to lose a lot of his players or if the roster can get picked apart or, it's just Motta's going to leave. There's rumors that, Juve might approach him to replace Allegri. If it's not, it's gonna be Tudor. It's what I'm saying. It's all up in the air. We have to wait come summertime. But if this kind of squad kind of stays the same, who's to say he doesn't pull a Gasparini type effect and just starts getting the most makes mountains out of molehills type of thing. In a positive sense instead of a negative sense. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. What I'm saying is that Roma's schedule is tougher because you're fighting to get in, and the teams that you're fighting against to get in is your competition essentially. So it's not like as if you have a chance to bank points on lesser quality teams, unless they're in parentheses. It's more like you if you're going to try to get into that top 4 spot, if you get in, it's because you have to earn it, and they will. And if they do, they will. If they do earn it. Whereas Milan, yes, tough games. I'm not denying that, and but in terms of league play, they can hold steady, and they should be fine. They have less pressure than Roma does.
I think just to bounce even off of that, I think where I'm looking at it is that to start the season, the pressure was higher for Milan than it was Roma. I think
Fair.
we can probably all agree with that. I think just how Milan has performed in these last couple of seasons. Obviously, last year was a bit of a down year. This season, wanting to get back to levels that we've seen in since the Scudetto year, I guess we can say. And I think just the overall, and how I'm looking at it, is like the overall pressure just to maintain, I think, competes with Roma trying to get in. That's kind of how I'm also looking at it. So because listen, they did not advance in Champions League. They have an opportunity to go far in this Europa League and potentially, hopefully, maybe even win the whole thing. But they still need to get through Roma to do so. Facing an Inter in the Derby della Madonnina, facing a Juve that they're battling with, having those expectations so high to start the season, I think, kind of, I don't want to say trumps everything else, but it kind of adds to what this month means and what May means as well, to end the season for Milan. So, and again, like you said, Johnny, I think you said it well. I mean, you can't get complacent. You can't think that number 2 position is locked up. We thought that number 2 position was locked up for Juve, weeks ago. Milan was able to, I think, gain 13 points ground on Juve, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, and surpassed them. And now I think they're 5-6 points ahead of them, if I'm not mistaken. So I think the overall pressure for the club was higher, and I kind of maybe take that into consideration in terms of how these schedules can kind of weigh in terms of weight.
Sorry, Adria, I just got to go with Johnny. Maybe it's my family bias here, but no, I think Roma, that's an incredibly tough schedule. It feels like almost every week they're playing a rival. They got a game against Udinese in there, but I know that's not an easy game either. But other than that, it's just pure rivals: Bologna and Napoli. Then you throw in the games against Juve and Atalanta in May. It's a tough schedule for Roma, but if there's a guy who could to guide them through, is De Rossi, and it's one of those coaching changes that it seems like it's actually working in a positive way. That wasn't so much the case with Napoli, but sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. In the words of Gattuso, sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe should. I feel like, Johnny, you were about to say that.
Yeah, you kind of did, but I realized I was on
Everyday Malakia.